Thank you, APLF, for inviting me to present at this APLF forum. It's looking at the sustainability issues within the leather industry, and I thought it was very apt that the University of Northampton, or ICLT, would talk about the sustainability of knowledge within the leather industry. I have been in the industry just over 30 years, with 13 of those years being at the university. So I have seen some change with regards to education and knowledge transfer to students over those years. What I'd like to share with you is where we are now, where we would like to be, and how we can work together to achieve that as an industry. One of the first questions I want to pose, and this is always an interesting one when you're with people in the industry, is how did we all end up with a career in the leather industry? And answers to this tend to fall into one of three categories. The first one is, were you born into the industry? For example, a family business. Did you fall into it by accident, or did you choose this career on an independent basis? And I think most people will either be born into the industry or fall into it by accident. And my career path was an accident, but one of the nicest accidents I have had, not that I've had many. My challenges as director of the ICLT is, how do we attract those students to come and join the industry on an independent basis? So did you choose this career independently? That's the issue we face with sustaining knowledge transfer through the industry, attracting new individuals to come and join leather as a career. If I just take one moment to reflect, I delivered the John Arthur Wilson Memorial Lecture back in 2016, and the title of the presentation was Leather Education, Preserving the Past and Investing in the Future. We can't forget the knowledge that has been offered and developed by the likes of Sharp House and John Arthur Wilson himself. We need to maintain that or retain that. It's still very, very relevant, but we also need to look at what we need for the future sustainability of the industry. And that's the second challenge that ICLT has in supporting the industry. I also presented two quotes within my presentation back in 2016. One was an ancient saying going back nearly around 500 BC. And quite ironically, the phrase was, there is nothing permanent except change. And at the time, I thought that was extremely relevant. Maybe not, or even more relevant as it is today, particularly reflecting over the last 12 months, where we've all had to undergo extreme change and embrace this online culture. Another saying that I presented, and in fact it's a Chinese saying, is, we are cursed to live in interesting times. And this one always makes me chuckle. And it very much depends on how we interpret the meaning of interesting times. I think just taking these sort of two quotes into consideration, this highlights two critical factors. Okay, so what we have now, let's hope these will go forward. So on the back of those two phrases, we can consider two critical factors really that affect our leather industry with regards to sustaining our knowledge transfer going forward. The first one is the rate of change, and as many of us know, particularly again over the last 12 months, this has been pretty rapid. We've had to make adjustments, and that's no different for education as well. We have to listen to industry, and we have to listen to the needs of industry and change our programs accordingly to make sure we are supplying a product that is going to meet industry needs. The other sort of key factor is supplying educated people to manage this change. So the change is not just with us, it's with industry. And the leather industry do need educated people to manage these changes. They need people with a sound understanding of leather knowledge to address the issues, the problems, and the changes that industry faces. So we talk about the term sustainability, and I'm sure all of us are probably a little tired of this phrase. It's a very wide definition and has many implications in industry and life in general. When I was originally asked to talk about sustainability, the choice of subjects was immense. We do have modules on sustainability, but I thought it would be more appropriate to actually talk about the sustainability of knowledge feeding into the industry. So let's have a look in the context of education. So we have many definitions floating around. This one, the avoidance of depletion of natural resources in order to maintain an ecological balance, and that's very pertinent to the leather industry. But there's also a phrase, the ability to maintain at a certain rate or level. And this is particularly relevant to education. We have to maintain that level of education, and not just maintain, but develop it to meet those changing needs. And indeed, leather education is crucial in the role of sustaining the overall leather industry. We need high quality, high performance products. There's green credentials. These are the drivers for sustainability now that we're looking at. There's innovation, there's creative thinkers, and education and research. And I think when I'm thinking in the context of education, it's particularly that innovation, the creative thinkers, and education and research encompasses both of those factors. So just sort of moving on, before we go any further, I'd like to introduce you to those creative thinkers that we have at ICLT. And this is our ICLT academic team. I'm sure some of you in the audience will recognise some of the faces. Particularly Professor Tony Covington. He still works with us on sort of an ad hoc basis. I think when you look at the team, it's young, it's dynamic, and we address probably all the key factors of the leather industry, whether it's chemistry, leather technology, supply chain management, finishing, etc. But I think I'm very lucky to have this young dynamic team who are able to embrace the changes required to ensure the constant feed of suitable graduates out into industry. Some of you may be aware of the journey that we've had as an institute over the last few years. We had a year in temporary accommodation whilst the university was moving its campus onto a new site in the town centre. ICLT had to move their premises as well. And that involved the tannery, the labs and the teaching rooms. And you can see the time frame here of actually designing and building our new facilities. So we're very lucky that the university have invested in ICLT so that we now have modern, up-to-date facilities in order to educate the future of the leather industry. I have a few images here of our new tannery. Again, we have processing facilities right from raw through to the finished leather. We also have teaching and research laboratories to support the education that we offer the students. And that includes wet chemistry laboratories in addition to physical testing. So the students have a unique opportunity where they make their own leather and then they can test their leather to see or define its innate properties. Some of you may also be familiar with our microscopy suite. This is something we're particularly proud of and offers significant enhancement to our education programme. We have a scanning electron microscope here for which we actually did fundraise for. So I'm sure there's a few of you in the audience that may have donated kindly against the purchase of this equipment. We also have various light microscopes as well that the students can use. And this is microscopy is embedded in both the curriculum and within their research projects. And some of you may remember Amanda Mitchell, who sadly passed away around 4 years ago, who was a very renowned, a worldwide renowned microscopist. So I was fortunate to have her skills passed on to myself, as well as Mark Gummer. So we're very keen to use these facilities to pass the skills on to the students and keep that knowledge base afloat. So what does ICLT offer as an institute? There's essentially three areas of services. The first one is research. We then have education and short courses, and then outreach activities. Research really is a presentation in its own right. Outreach activities where we look to increase the profile of leather as a career, which is really important for both us and the industry. But what I'm going to focus on today is the education and short courses and how this has evolved to meet industry needs and how we can take it further to ensure the sustainability of this knowledge transfer. So essentially, what I'm going to talk about now is outline where we are now, outline where I think we need to be, and then also pose some ideas of how we can work together to reach this ultimate goal. So where are we now? If we just look at the innovation in leather education at ICLT, if I reflect over the past years during my time at ICLT, traditionally we taught the science and technology of leather making, which goes without saying it is extremely important for our graduates to understand. However, we've now broadened our offering and we engage with the whole of the supply chain, and we also address global issues associated with the leather industry. So what we aim at producing is a graduate that is fully rounded and fully aware of the global leather industry and ready to embrace that commercial environment. We also work with our fashion students here at ICLT. It's very important for the fashion students to understand leather as a material. It's also important for our leather students to understand what happens after they've made the leather. So there are some areas in the curriculum, particularly in year one, where the fashion students and leather students do integrate. We also look at delivering transferable skills. Some of those include presentation skills. In every subject area of the curriculum through the 3 years, they have to make verbal presentations and present their findings. We also teach them the critical thinking to reflect and critique what they've done and what they read. I think most importantly as well is actually ensuring we do meet those industry needs. And a bit later in the presentation, it will become apparent how we integrate with industry to embed those commercial findings, those commercial thoughts into the ICLT curriculum. We have listened very closely to industry needs, and what we've actually done is modified our curriculum to make it more accessible for those that are in employment. So in effect, we've looked at some of the subject areas within the curriculum and made them what we call short and fat, so that people can hop in and out of the curriculum and attend those subjects as training courses rather than the longer academic programme. So in fact, what we have developed is a multi-product that's available to a wider audience. This is just a very brief outline on what we currently deliver. As you can see, the academic programmes are both undergraduate and postgraduate, varying from in the undergrad provision from 1 year to 3 years, and in the postgrad from 6 weeks to a year's MSc or 3 years PhD. With the MSc, you can hop in for 6 weeks and get a postgrad certificate, hop in for 12 weeks and get a postgrad diploma. We appreciate for industry to release employees for long periods of time isn't always feasible. One example of how we've adapted our academic provision to meet industry needs is the MSc programme. The programme itself is a year long, but what we've actually carried out is an intense delivery over the first 3 months of the theory, the practical tannery work and the practical laboratory work. So students work extremely hard in the first 3 months. They study 5 days a week, 9 to 5. This is very intense. So we do need high caliber students to engage with this programme. After the first 3 months, the next 3 months is then involved in writing their assignments for assessment, followed by the last 6 months carrying out their research dissertation. Now, one thing this offers to industry is the opportunity for employees to join us for the first 3 months, but join as a training course only rather than an academic programme. And this has proved very popular over the last couple of years, with some of the major brands and tanneries sending employees for these 3 months training course. So that's one example how we've listened to industry. We've adapted slightly what we offer to enable it to increase the accessibility for industry employees. Okay, this is a list of some of the training courses we offer. But I think when we look at the adaptation to change, I think we all agree over the last 12 months that we've had to adapt to this new online culture. So one thing that has sort of inspired ICLT to do, or inspired us to do, is to develop an online course, the Foundations to Leather Technology, which is 12 weeks long with an hour-and-a-half lecture each week online. And the success of this was reflected by almost 70 delegates registering for this course. And that included delegates from startup companies, people that are looking at leather making as a hobby, through to some of the top global tanneries and brands. So for us, that was a tremendous success, but also demonstrated to us how adaptable we can be, how adaptable ICLT can be, but also industry in engaging with these online activities. So for us, that was a great success. Okay, we do work really closely with industry at the moment, and that for me is one of the most valuable things that adds value to our curriculum. We engage with companies all through the supply chain, and some of those modes of engagement are given on the left-hand side here. We have workshops which are carried out both on and off-site at ICLT, and this is really important to introduce students to those commercial products. We can teach the science and technology of leather making, but as we all know, there's an awful lot of commercial products out there that students need to be familiar with. So we're eternally grateful for the time that's invested by particularly chemical companies that come in and deliver these workshops. Excuse me. Chemical companies also donate some chemicals so that we ensure that we're constantly working with up-to-date current technology. Some companies have invested in equipment. We have here a drying drum from Eritrea. We have a vacuum dryer from Cartigliano. We have drums from Ital Progetti. And again, eternally grateful. Guest lectures are really important as well. And guest lectures are not only from chemical companies, they can be from tanneries and brands as well. Students go out on site for work experience, and indeed it doesn't stop there. Also, our staff are very much invited out to some of the companies to make sure they are up to date with current technology. So I think this demonstrates how we can sustain up-to-date knowledge for our students that then actually feed out into industry. Excuse me. And I think, excuse me. I think all these things taken into consideration leads us to the ultimate accolade of our graduates often attaining 100% employability. Quite often, our students are offered jobs before they actually graduate. And I think one of the things that the students are offered during their modes of study is the ability or the opportunity to network with industry from day one. And that is through the workshops, etc., and guest lectures. So that for us is really, really important. So where do we need to be? I think this is interesting. Excuse me, I've put we with a capital W. or in capitals, because we is not just ICLT. We, in this particular phrase, is us as an industry. Where do we as an industry need to be? Okay, so I think one of the biggest hurdles, we need to find students or encourage students from a non-leather background. It's fantastic that industry are looking to upskill their employees. It's great that family businesses are sending generations through our education programme. But I think one of the challenges that we have as ICLT and we have as an industry is attracting students from non-leather backgrounds. ICLT needs students to ensure our financial stability, but industry needs the graduates to fill this skills gap. So how do we do that? I think one of the key things we need to look at doing is increasing the profile of leather as a career. And I think one opportunity we have there is to look at how we present leather as a material to those that have no pre-existing knowledge. And I think the key message here is present leather as a sustainable material. And I know organisations such as Leather Naturally are addressing this, and indeed ICLT are working with Leather Naturally to see how we can better engage with that younger generation, the Gen Z, the millenniums, to actually make leather as a career more attractive. So I think all in all, this is where we need to be. We need to present leather as a more attractive career opportunity to the younger generation. So how can we work that? We need to work together. We need to collaborate. One idea, I have a few ideas here that I'd like to share with you, but I'd also like people's opinions and thoughts on how you think we can work together and how you think we can attract new people into the industry. One quite nice model that I think works on a win-win basis is for industry to actually seek out good chemistry students and almost sponsor them through an internship type situation. And I think that works well with our MSc programme, given the way that we deliver that programme. And a model that I can envisage is where industry perhaps go to local universities and look to sponsor a chemistry graduate, someone that's done a chemistry degree. If they graduate in July, they have the potential of being embedded in the particular company for 4 months, which will take them up to January, which is when we start our master's degree. They could then come to ICLT for 3 months, January to March, and have that intense delivery. They could then return to the company, and whilst they're still a full-time student, they have 3 months to write all their assignments. But the value to the company is that they then have 6 months to carry out their research project, research dissertation. And that research project can be embedded into a subject that's relevant and useful for the particular company. And they would be mentored by an academic at ICLT. At the end of that, hopefully, the student would be employed. If not, it's still a win-win in that the student will have gained an MSc and some work experience, and the company would have gained an element of research relevant to their company. So this is one model that I think where ICLT can work alongside industry to help attract students in and embrace leather as a career. Other areas or potential areas is actually where industry could sponsor dissertation projects, and that could be undergraduate projects or postgraduate. So for example, if a company has a topic of particular interest, I would be happy for them to advertise that to our students as a potential research dissertation and even interview the students, which is good transferable skills for the students. We can address the issue of confidentiality, so NDAs and IP protection can be addressed. It has been done in the past, and industry would actually get a short, free of charge research project. Again, that's a win-win scenario. I've already outlined that the online delivery of knowledge has been a success, a huge success for us. So the question is now to industry, would a 2-week practical leather making summer school held at ICLT add further value to an online course? So we're actually marrying up the theory and giving them the opportunity to embrace that practical work on site at ICLT. Or are there other online courses that are required by industry? Given the success of the basic foundations of leather manufacture, is there a need for something on sustainability within the leather manufacturing process, or indeed leather science? It's these ideas that I'd like to collate from industry so that we can further develop relevant courses. We've also had situations where industry has sponsored equipment or rooms. I'm very happy for this to happen. ICLT is an excellent and actually cheap marketing platform where you're actually able to reach out to the future key players of the leather industry. I'm hoping the graduates from ICLT will actually move into industry and become quite significant representatives with time. So we are an ideal marketing platform. And then there's work experience. Our students are always looking for work experience, particularly over the summer. Is industry able to offer that to further develop our graduates so that they are industry ready? These are just a few of my ideas. And I'm very, very open to discuss these, and I'm very open to any other ideas that industry members throughout the whole of the supply chain may have. I think this takes me to the last slide, and I think in summary, I'd like to just outline that ICLT is constantly striving to meet industry needs. Okay, we need to meet your needs so that we're producing a product, and the product being graduates that actually fit your organisations. And in order to do that, we do need your input, your ideas, and more importantly, or just as importantly, your collaboration. We do need to work together for the future sustainability of the leather industry. Okay, thank you very much, and I'm welcome to take any questions.